so nice to be home. You saw me texting during Mark's remarks. First off, I have heard them before, but the second thing is I was asking my staff to remind me where we were 2 nights ago, and I'm embarrassed to say I literally don't remember. But I wanted, last week, in Petersburg, Leesburg, Shenandoah, Dinwiddie, Stanton, Culpeper, and yesterday went to Wakefield and then Clifton. To be able to drive 10 miles and go to lunch this is a great day. This is very nice to be here. Mark and I both travel to places like Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, and you spend 3.5 hours getting to the lunch. This is great. This is wonderful. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am running for Attorney General because I believe that this Constitution, which is our Constitution, is in peril. And it's in peril because Barack Obama does not accept the limitations that it puts on him. Now, there was time probably where you could just say no more, can't go any further, and play defense. But I think we can't do that anymore because we have lost too many of our liberties already. Now, I'd ask you to just consider the Obamacare decision for a minute, because people talk about it being about health care, insurance, exchanges, but it's not just about that. What it is, it's a case that says the federal government can make you buy something. Can make you buy something. It is an infringement on your liberty that exceeds Obamacare. Even if the federal government, Congress, and the President repealed Obamacare itself, this case would still be there. And it's what lawyers call a roadmap case, because what it means is you can look at that case and see how you want to get to taking away your liberties on what kind of car to buy, what kind of food to eat. All they have to do is call it a tax. A tax. Now, from a legal history standpoint, this makes this the third great expansion of federal power in the entire history of the Republic. First was right after the Civil War. The second was right during the New Deal. The third one just happened. It just happened. If you went to law school 50 years from now, they will say 1865, 66, 67, the 1930s, and 2012. And there's no big crisis. I mean, this is the shame of it all. After the Civil War, you could visualize how Americans might be looking for some new way to deal between the federal government and the states. When unemployment is 30% in the 1930s, people are looking for simple solutions to complicated problems, and they give in. There was no crisis in 2012. We were just there. All of us were there in 2012, and that decision came down, and they said they can make you buy something. At the height of the New Deal, never did FDR have the power to make you buy something, but Barack Obama has that power today. And so this happened on our watch. On our watch. There were two Democrats who voted for that from Virginia. They needed 60 votes, remember, to get it passed. Who was the 59th? Jim Webb. Who was the 60th? Mark Warner. No state did more than Virginia. We can't blame Vermont, Massachusetts, or Maine, or Minnesota, or California. No state did more than we did to pass that awful law that led to the Supreme Court decision. So I believe we have a moral obligation. We have a moral obligation to take our Constitution back and give our kids the same liberties that our parents gave to us. Now, if you want to know how hard I'll fight for this Constitution, and I ask you to just think back on that property rights amendment that finally passed last year, because remember the history of this. What the property rights amendment was about was a Supreme Court decision, another bad one. This was a decision that said that the federal government, or state government, local government can take Mr. Lloyd's property and give it to Mr. Obenshain, not for a road, not for a school, but just because they like him better. Just because they like him better. It's an atrocious decision. Unless you think this never happens. Yep, right? That's what I say, Mark. That's not bad for you, but unless you think this never happens, in Norfolk right now, there's a gentleman who makes radios for the Navy. His name is Bob Wilson. He has a factory. Norfolk wants his property to put a movie theater there. And he says, I don't want to sell. They said, no, we want you to sell as part of a mixed-use development, all these blocks. He says, it's my property. I don't want to sell. So what have they done? They're taking it with eminent domain right now. Okay, so that was the problem. That was an atrocious decision, 2005. So in 2007, I drafted a constitutional amendment to put those rights back in the Constitution where they belong. Fell by 4 votes. Failed by 4 votes. Brought it back in 2009, was killed in committee. Brought it back in 2010. This is my 3rd try. This time it didn't even get out of the House, it got deferred. And if you're keeping score, we were moving in the wrong direction. Every time we brought it up, it got further and further from passage. And there were people who said, it'll never pass. Use your energy for something else. Quit. But that's not what we did. 2011, we formed an even bigger coalition. I was in the House, Mark was in the Senate. We got a Democrat to put his name on the top, which was the trick, and it passed by one vote. One vote, out of subcommittee, out of committee. We passed it again. It came to you all, and you all put it back in the Constitution where it belongs. Thank you. Thank you. Took 4 tries. I will bring that same determination to the Attorney General's office if you give me a chance. Now, the second issue that you take up as Attorney General is fighting crime. Now, most of you know this because you helped me get elected. Before I ran for office, I was a prosecutor in Orange County, Virginia. 5 years, did 2,400 cases. And I have used the experience of that office to try to write better criminal laws for Virginia. And I'll just give you some examples. The first were drunk driving laws. I did a couple hundred drunk driving cases in Orange. And when I got into office, we passed new laws that say that if you're a repeat offender, or if you drive with kids in the car, you're going to jail. And that's because, gosh, you think of the victims of drunk driving, you're visualizing pedestrians crossing the road or another driver. It is often the person in the seat next to the driver. Or with a kid, the person in the back seat. So we said that's somebody who needs to go to jail. We looked at protective orders after the awful killing over at UVA. And everybody in this community, I always have to say, have you ever heard about what happened at UVA? But everybody in this crowd knows it. You had an abusive, mean drunk, the boyfriend. And when he drank too much, he went over to his girlfriend's house and he killed her, everybody. He beat her to death. And here was the problem. She wasn't married to him, she didn't have a baby by him, and she didn't live with him. It was very hard for her to get a protective order. Now, I don't know if it would have helped. I don't know if she would have sought one out. We sure could make it easier to expand protective orders, and so I had a bill that would do that. I'll give you another example. We had an issue up in Madison County, just up the road, on Route 29, where a man dressed as Santa Claus was invited into the school for their annual, they had a PTO Christmas pageant. He went room to room, met with the kids, and only afterwards did some sort of suspicious parent say, I wonder if Mr. Southern is who he says he is. He was on the sex offender registry. He had served a 20-year hitch for 10 felonies up in New York State. And that wasn't even what made him mad. What made him mad was that it wasn't illegal. There was nothing illegal about what he did. He was invited in. If you see his picture, you can look it up. He looks like Santa Claus. We changed that law too. I wrote the bill that says that if you're a violent sex offender, you cannot go on school property. That's my bill. And then last year was a bill I'm especially proud of. This was a bill that we looked at the men, they're all men, the men who rape little children. Some of you have heard the story. More than half of all the rapes in Virginia are of kids aged 12 and under. 12% of kids aged 6 and under. There were 228 of these offenses in the last 2 years. How many do you think got life? None. More none, not much. Okay. Just 10. 10 got a life sentence. The average sentence was 13 years, which means you go in by 23, you're out by 36. There's nothing we can do to fix these guys, and we have tried everything. We, being the United States, not so much Virginia, we have tried everything. I was part of a prosecution in Orange where the guy was 72 years old. He was on a walker. He was reduced to inviting the kids into his house, and he sent pictures into his friends in prison. 5-decade career of crimes against children. So, I was the House author of the bill, co-author of the bill that said that if you rape a child who's 12 or under in Virginia, you go to prison for the rest of your life, period. And that passed. That's the law of Virginia today. Now, let me talk about the campaign just a little bit. We have both been, you all know most of this already, but we've been getting our report cards and our scorecards, and it won't surprise anybody to hear that I have an A rating from the NRA, 100% from the American Conservatives Union. The Virginia Tea Party Patriots just did their scorecard. I got the 3rd highest in the whole General Assembly. I'm proud of all of those. We also have a bunch of awards, so I've been awarded by the sheriffs and the prosecutors, Mothers Against Drunk Driving twice. There's one I want to tell you about in this group in particular. I have been working on domestic violence issues for my whole career. And there is a group, it's called the Virginia Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Alliance. They call it the Alliance. And it's all the battered women's shelters, the hotlines. And they get together each few years, and they do give awards. And 4 times, this coalition has given me an award. But the most recent one was the one that just happened. It was after the protective order issue. And they called it the 30 Voices in 30 Years Award. And they singled out 30 Virginians who over the last 30 years have been working on these issues. And I won one of the awards. And I actually jotted down what they said. What they said is, for the past decade, Delegate Bell's legislative efforts have been instrumental in creating a safer Virginia for survivors of sexual and domestic violence. There's some literature on your table about a woman that I helped when I was a prosecutor. This is something I think is very important, and I would like to continue that work on as the next Attorney General. Let me close up with this, and we can leave lots of time for questions. I was raised in a Navy family. We moved all around the country growing up, and I was taught that nothing beats hard work. Not being smart, not being good looking, hard work. And that is how I have tried to live my life. I've lived in the Charlottesville area. I first came here in 1984 to go to college. That's how I've tried to live my life. And so it's how I became an Eagle Scout. I came to UVA on scholarship. That's how I got the scholarship. I borrowed the money to put myself through law school here. I won my first race. Many of you remember that race. I was not the first choice of the powerful people. And it's how we got that property rights amendment passed. We just kept banging our head against that wall 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, until the wall came down. And we got it out to you, and you passed it. If you elect me as your Attorney General, I will bring that same approach. I will fight doggedly and relentlessly for this. I ask you to give me the chance. I look forward to hearing your questions, and I look forward to seeing you at the convention in Richmond. Thank you.